Hi, and welcome to another episode of Chatting It Up. I'm so glad you decided to join me. You know, there's certain things that a caregiver only experiences, and other caregivers will understand that as well. But the amazing thing about it is when the primary caregiver sees things, they experience some emotions that they can't quite put their finger on. They just know what it is that they feel. And it isn't until later on that they understand what those feelings were, day after day, week after week, month after month, sometimes year after year. And I remember feeling that way for a few years, not really understanding what it was that I was feeling. I just knew I felt something. As a caregiver to my mom, as a caregiver to my dad, I felt it. And he didn't have dementia, but my mom did. And my dad was not bedridden. He was actually pretty mobile up until his very last day. My mom was bedridden. But there's something that every moment that a caregiver experiences, the word is decline. The caregiver actually witnesses the decline of the person that they're taking care of. And as they witness this decline, whether it be they can't do this anymore, they can no longer do that anymore, it doesn't work the same way as it did before, any type of change in their active daily living, their ability to do things, that's considered a loss. And the caregiver has got front row seats. They've got the primary front row seat to see this loss and the decline of their loved one. There's a sense about you that it was just like, okay, shift gears. Because every time something like that occurs, the caregiver then has to change their paradigm to adjust to the new way of functioning, the new way the loved one has to live. The adjustments have to be made, and the caregiver is constantly changing whatever needs to happen. And every time that change happens, there's a little bit of the loved one that gets discarded because they'll never go back to that ever again. That's hard. Every day there's a change. Every day there's a change. If there's a loss in the ability to do something, it's another shedding of that person, of who they are, of what they're able to do. And every time this happens, the caregiver realizes, and it's hard to talk about because sometimes caregivers don't talk to their loved ones openly. I did with my mom. But when I talk about that, it's that every day that something changed, you move closer to the inevitable. Nobody likes to talk about what the inevitable is, but let's face the fact. My dad didn't want to do dialysis. He was in renal failure. And we knew what the inevitable would be for him because when he chose not to do dialysis, we knew. And I had that constantly ask him. I remember repeatedly asking him, Dad, do you understand what you're saying? That if you're not going to do this type of treatment or anything that would help you, life-sustaining treatments? He said, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I said, I understand that. I just want to make sure that you understand it. But when my mom, who actually loved life, she loved socializing, she loved people, but she had dementia. And she had kidney problems on top of it. So a lot of things that my mom was going through, I was already experienced from my dad, who passed away in 2020. And 2 months later, I was taking care of my mom. But I had to ask my mom, you know, are you ready for what's ahead? And she just said, hey, you never know what's going to happen. It was probably the last 6 months of her life that every time I would say goodnight to her and close the door, she'd call out my name. She goes, Carolyn. I go, yeah, Mom. I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. And I made a joke of it because I felt uncomfortable. Why, Mom? Where are you going? What? You're acting so finalized. She goes, you just never know. And when she started talking like that, I knew she knew that it was going to be soon, but she didn't know how soon it would be, and neither did I. And the only way I could deal with it was to kind of make a joke about it and say, I'll see you next morning. Just relax. She goes, I just need you to know this. And I so appreciate it. At the time, I didn't know what to do with it. But the inevitable was always there. You know, as time moves on and the caregiving gets harder and harder to watch, it gets harder to see. But it got easier in the tasks of what needed to be done. That's a weird dynamic. You watch this person turn into something that you don't recognize, and you know that there's a struggle going on. But the less that you do as a caregiver is a really big indication that they're in a steady decline. And that's hard because you realize the easier it is to deal with the tasks that you normally do for your loved one. It's not that you're getting used to it, it's you're doing less. You know, I remember going to my room at my mom's house where I stayed, taking care of her 24/7. And I remember feeling this enormous amount of guilt. And I almost hated my thoughts because you're exhausted. You're constantly thinking, if this happens, if that happens, you need to do this. You need to schedule this. There's a schedule for doctor's appointments. There's things that you need to. So you're constantly thinking so that you stay ahead of everything. You know, if mom happens to do this, then I need to do that. You're never really fully resting. And even when you're sleeping, you're not really sleeping because you don't know if they're going to try to get out of bed or is there something happening? Is mom resting? You know, I had a camera in the room to make sure that mom was okay and to make sure that she didn't get out of bed because get this, even though she was bedridden, she thought she was still able to walk. But getting back at this huge amount of guilt, my caregiving relief was like, how long do I have to deal with this? How long? How long? Is this going to be another 3 years? Is this going to be? I've heard of people, I know of people that have been doing it for close to 10 years. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have 10 years to give. But the words that hit me and that made me cry so hard was, I want mom to be at peace, but I also know what it would require for that peace to happen. And I know what it would require for me to have that peace. And that's literally for her to die and my caregiving journey end. And I found out that it's a very common thought with caregiving. It sounds horrible, but it's a reality. It's a reality that because you want relief, when you do it on your own, you don't see a way out. you try to find ways to deal with it, to help yourself, but you realize the exchange of your peace and to have your life back is their death. I say that because I didn't have the finances to put her in a assisted living place where someone else could take care of her. So I'm coming at from it a completely different angle of I am the family caregiver. When someone told me and defined all these emotions that I was feeling, they said, well, you're experiencing anticipatory grief. And I went, what? And I had to sit back and think about this. And I thought, you know what? You're right. I'm anticipating the passing of the person that I love, that I'm taking care of. I think what made it really hard was because my mom and I didn't get along majority of my life. I got to experience her as a mom for a very short time. And the closer it got to the inevitable, the more I felt my heart hurt because it got a taste of what it was like to have a mom. The mom I always wanted. You know, every change in my loved one's life, my mom, it just creates a new level for the caregiver to accept, to deal with, to grieve. It's pathetic. It's hard. It's not an easy road, but even if you put an understanding to it, I felt some relief when I realized that all the feelings that I was experiencing was all equated to anticipatory grief. Every single stage, every level, every change equal to anticipating that you're getting closer to that inevitable. And you know, when the loved one passes away and everybody is around, it's the caregiver that usually does not cry. They're pretty much all cried out. And it's only because the caregiver has been grieving this entire caregiving journey. I know that when my mom passed away, I had said everything that I could possibly say to mom. She said what she could possibly say to me. I actually went to lunch with a friend and I knew it was soon. It was like any day now. And when it happened, I was okay that I wasn't there. My sister was there with my niece. And I remember saying, if it happens, I'm going to be okay. And I was. But the minute I came in that door and I ran to the room within 10, 15 minutes of her taking her last breath, I knew she could still hear me. And it was then that I started to weep because it was like, we did it, Mom. We did it. You and I, you made it across the finish line. It was like a sense of relief type of cry, but it was more, no, I take that back. It wasn't a sense of relief cry because I had already experienced that. It was more of a weeping of, I miss my mom. I finally got my mom and I miss my mom. And to this day, I have those moments. So I just want to tell you as a caregiver, chin up, man. It's a hard road, but understand that what you're feeling is normal. Don't feel guilty about anything. It's anticipatory grief. The emotions that you go through as a caregiver are not of the norm. Not everybody goes through this. Your family won't even understand it. Your closest people to you more than likely won't even understand it. But I'm speaking directly to the caregiver because they will see things and they will experience things that no one else will ever experience. And no one else but another caregiver will truly understand the depth of that emotion, of that feeling, of anticipating the inevitable. And with that, I'm just going to say, be strong, be kind to yourself, give yourself some grace. You may feel alone, you may have resentment, you may have guilt, you may have all those feelings. Know that it is normal, but there's other people in the caregiving world. Find a support group that understand exactly where you're at, because I guarantee you will find relief. But above all, just really be graceful and gracious with yourself. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to let it out. Be good to yourself. Be blessed. And remember, we're here for you. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching. And please remember to hit the subscribe button. We are trying to grow our channel and reach 1,000 subscribers. Now, for every new subscriber, these two nutheads right here, they're going to get a treat, so we will all be happy. Thanks for watching.